Hello, everybody. My name is Lewis Lee, and this is Planning Traffic. I say this every week. We do this every week live, every Thursday night, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. So tell all your friends that we talk about cars, boats, trucks, and anything you put gas in. What's up, Mr. Ray?
Don't forget buses and motorcycles.
Buses and motorcycles,
You name
diesel,
it. You're right.
anything, anything with fumes.
Yeah, pretty much. That's yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much, pretty much. Yeah, we're. I'm still trying to get back to do some car work. I've been sidetracked by all this house stuff I've been doing. But
yeah,
it's coming. It's coming. We'll get there.
yeah. We've been working on a bus. We're going to take off this weekend to go do some gallivanting.
Which direction?
I think we might go to Tennessee and then jump over to the ocean and go to Ocean City or somewhere. You know,
Nice.
we we can go anywhere. It doesn't matter. Just
Right.
ride.
Any particular part of Tennessee that's your strike your fancy?
Um, probably probably around Dolly World. You know, go around the mountains.
All right, so that's Gatlinburg, and well, that's actually Pigeon Forge. Yeah, which nice.
Yeah,
That's Eastern Tennessee. It's easy to get to from you. Yeah.
yeah, real nice area. I might try to see if Stacy David's around. I'm gonna try to stop in and see him.
Oh yeah, right, right, right. I forgot he's over
Uh,
there. Yeah.
yeah, so if he's there and he lets us in, we'll do some live action.
Yeah. Have you had any progress on the bus? Any more mods or anything? Have you done anything else to prepare for the next trip?
Yeah, I got all the stuff for my solar panels. I got all the hardware. I've been waiting for hardware, man. So I got it all yesterday and today. So tomorrow I'm gonna try to put it on, and I think Sunday we're gonna take off.
Okay. Mother's Day. Wow, nice. Mother's Day, little Mother's Day retreat. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. We I got my dashboard all put together and my stereo's hooked up.
Cool.
Um, I just been knocking off little stuff on the list.
Yeah, well, that's how you got to do it. You do it a little at a time. As materials, if you have material issue, you got to wait on that. What kind of
Yeah.
hardware were you waiting for? I'm curious.
Um, so the curve of the bus on the sides, it got a real funny curve. So
Right.
everything it throws everything off on the inside, the outside. So I needed to get these brackets that hold the solar rails. The rails run from the front to the back.
Okay.
So I was gonna make them, and for the price of the metal, it was cheaper for me just buy the brackets already made.
Sure.
So I bought them, but they're bent. The guy makes them. He bends them direct, for the bus.
Uh-huh.
So the holes are already there, so I don't have to drill any holes.
Yeah.
You got
Nice.
30, 40 brackets. Drilling all those, cutting them didn't sound too fun. So I just ordered them.
I mean, I'll tell you, I've been in a position like that many times where I could either fab up something, make something to fit, or I could buy something pre-made. And if I knew that the pre-made stuff was crap, I would just stay away from it. But a lot of times I would still decide to make it, even though something was available,
Mhm.
and because I can make it better. And then you get into this. You're halfway into the project. You're saying, "Why didn't I buy the stupid thing?"
Yeah, your
So
time is worth a lot.
and it may not be as easy as you think it was, or like you said, oh shit, now I got to drill 100 holes. Like I didn't think of that. I mean, and it may like something like that. You'd want to set up almost like
Jig.
like a conveyor. Like you want to have. That's how I like to do an operation. If I'm cutting all the metal, do all the cuts, then do all the trims, then do all the holes. Do it one operation at a time.
Yep.
Uh, but
Yeah, I'm the same way.
so that's good. You were smart. I'm happy. You were smart.
So, so I start thinking a little different as I get older because it's harder for me to do things, man. My back's bad and shoulders, hands, everything. So
Sure.
I start thinking different. Should I make it or should I buy it?
I'm talking. I see this guy at my chiropractor's office. I saw him today. He's a retired city cop, and he's actually in good shape. He's thin. It looks like I think he weighs about maybe 150, 155, and he's about 5'8", so he's slim.
Mhm.
But he says his shoulder is shot. He's building a chopper. Nice bike. The problem is he compiled a lot of parts from like 20 years ago and whatever when he had some money. And now he's putting it together and finding out that, oh, the fork manufacturer went out of business, or a
Wow.
lot of the companies for the parts he has aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
And like he said, the forks, he goes, I don't know how to fill them. He said, usually you have nuts on the top of the forks. These are rounded. So I said, I remember some forks being the custom stuff. You took a plug out of the bottom and you'd have to inject the fluid in.
Mhm.
He says, yeah, I thought so too, but I don't see any plugs. I was like, are they pre-filled? He's like, no. So, he's trying to re-engineer it, but he was telling me, it's kind of a long frame. I think he said it was 2 up and 4 out. And with this custom front end, and he was saying he had his son help him. They were going to take it off his ramp. And he said he
Mhm.
found out that putting this thing up on any kind of a ramp, the front will get up, and because of its length,
Yep.
you know about this. When the middle of the bike hits the top of the ramp, it hits.
Mhm.
And now so
Cedars.
you either got to make a longer, a less of an incline ramp, or you
Yep.
have to lift the back of the bike. I mean, I've done that before too. And we were talking about it. I said, yeah, how many dodos do you see on? I see it all the time on the internet. Guys got their F-150 or F-250. It's jacked up, and they'll put a board on it, and they're gonna bring their bike, their 800-pound touring bike, onto the. Like, oh, really? That's gonna work well because you're gonna get about halfway up, and you're going over.
Yeah.
So he says, yeah, people don't understand the dynamics, of
People don't realize when you're going up a ramp like that, you got to put your feet down. There's nothing to put your feet down on.
right.
That's
You
when you
need
go.
another ramp.
Yeah.
I learned a long time ago just loading bikes here by the house, and my friend at the bike shop came over once to do it, and he says, he put the truck in the street, and now the truck was in the street, so when the driveway came down, the ramp from the truck to the driveway was a much lesser angle because the truck was in the street. And some driveways that are higher, you get even more of a benefit out of that. So
Yeah.
again, it's like using your head and using. This is where the stuff where people say, "Yeah, I'm never going to use that after school. When do I need geometry?" Yeah, that's when you need geometry because
Yep.
you remember about ramp angles. So, but that's like you said. He's he's in his 60s, so he says, "Look, I can't fool around. My shoulder is shot. I know I got to be smart about this."
Mhm.
And this bike doesn't even have an engine and transmission in it. So I said, "Man, once you load it with the powertrain, it may sit a little bit, even a half inch lower." He goes, "I know the kickstand was hitting. I got to re-engineer that." He goes, I got to think about a couple things."
Yeah.
So yeah, I just felt bad for him because he had virtually none of all the companies were out of business.
So that's a good topic that people buy parts through the years, and I've ran into that doing this bus. I'd buy stuff on Amazon, and I'd put it on the shelf, and then when I take it off the shelf and something's wrong, I can't return it because the 30 days are gone.
Well, yes. Now, I mean, that's one thing that happens, but I've talked about this on the radio show many times because I've seen friends do it where they'll buy parts, and I did it too. I mean, I bought a lot of parts in the '90s for my Pontiac. I wasn't ready to restore it yet, but I knew that I would someday, and I bought a ton of parts, and maybe 10 or 20% of it I didn't use because I changed ideas on, like, I bought some HEI stuff. Now I use a different ignition, so the HEI stuff didn't get used. But guys I know that bought billet wheels with flame cut spokes and the matching steering wheel and matching mirror. And I saw this happen firsthand. Now the car goes together. It's 20, 25 years later. You put that stuff on, you just
Right.
dated that build. You
Yeah.
might as well put like pastel stripes on the car.
Yep.
You literally just dated that build with the parts, and maybe you liked them then, maybe you still like them now, and you know what? That's fine. If you like them, I got no problem with that. You spent your money, you do it.
Right.
But if you want to be contemporary about it, no. So certain things like that you shouldn't buy and save.
Yeah.
Because styles and trends change.
and that would be a good reason to really plan out, like that book that Stacy David has, to plan out your build,
Right,
um,
right.
and really take. I was thinking that today on this bus too. If I had to rebuild a bus or do another one, I would overly plan things and go over it, several times before I start,
I
because
have, yeah.
you
Well,
run into so many things that you could have figured out before you started,
right.
and it's things you learn.
I have to say this too, that what was I going to say? I was going to say something about it. But yeah, like I said, pre-planning and this is where the guys who do a stock build have it over all of us. And I'm not a stock guy. I like my stuff modified, because if you buy stock parts for that car,
Yep.
they're always going to be the right parts for the car.
Yep.
So that's the one instance where you could buy stuff ahead of time and not worry about it.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
But that's boring.
well, that's it. I remember when I was talking about rebuilding my car, and we're doing a show, and my partner Chris said to me, he was all up and down because he is a stock guy. He likes his stuff stock and original. And he was like, "What are you doing that for? You're changing everything. It's a terrible plan. You don't know if the parts are going to work together and blah blah blah." And I said to him, "Well, I'll tell you this. I said I can argue this one a couple different ways. Actually, Chassis John said it best. I have a clip of him saying, I don't do stock. Stock stinks," which was man after my own heart. But I said to him, uh, I'm of the mindset that the factories back then really built some good cars, and they built some, and even the motorcycles, they built some great stuff. But the aftermarket took where they went, because they always had to cap it. They couldn't go to the nth degree. They had regulations and rules. So the aftermarket picked up where the factory left off, and then
Made a
just
better
made things.
product.
So that's where I pick up. So I'm a big aftermarket guy. So, but he said, yeah, but if you build the car stock, it'll be worth more. And I said, you know what? I got my car. It was 10 years old. It wasn't stock then. It's never going to be stock. But I said, you know what? Okay, but let me entertain the thought. I said, if I was to build that car in stock form, it would have had a 389, and my car would have had a 2-speed automatic. I would have hated that because those transmissions suck. It would have had four-wheel 9.5-inch drum brakes that didn't stop worth a crap. I would
Yep.
have hated that. I would have had 7.75 by 14-inch skinny bias ply tires. The car wouldn't have handled. I said it would have been a stock car for 1965, and I would hate it, so I would never drive it. I mean,
Yep.
yeah, okay, you could take it to a car show and maybe get a trophy or two, but I wouldn't enjoy it as a driver. I said now the way I went as a resto mod, now I enjoy it as a driver. But he was right in one respect. A lot of the things I did and a lot of the things I tried to mate together, I had troubles with. And I had to re engineer it and back up and maybe, all right, skip this plan, let's do something else. So that is a reality. But if I knew that going in, and I was willing to take that gamble. So
Right. Right.
that's
You
what a
know,
lot of guys don't think of. Yeah.
yeah. When I pull up at a light, I don't want to pull up a guy the same car I have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want my own identity.
Well, I'll tell you the truth, and that's the thing. I have a 400 cubic inch engine in my car. It's you can't tell by looking because they all look the same. It's like a small block Chevy, so it wasn't original. Big deal. But I have a tri-power. I always wanted a tri-power, and I got one. And one year at the GTO show, we're walking down the row of the 64 67s, and it was like tri-power, 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 tri-power. Like everybody, there's more tri-powers than were made, I think. It's like
Mm-hmm.
everybody's got a tri-power. I was like, you know what? I can't put that on my car because I'm just going to be another one of those guys with a tri-power. So that's what made me think, hey, let me do something different. Let me go like more like the 421s that used to race back in the day. They were they were punched out to 406, which my engine is because it's 30 over, and they had dual quads. I said, let me put two
Mm-hmm.
4 barrels on it. And I tell you, I got a lot of traction out of that. A lot of people, they look at the car and say, whoa, you got two carburetors on here. Like, yeah, one seemed good, two seemed better. And then it starts a lot of conversations. Boy, how do you tune them? Wow, you must use a lot of gas. Oh my God, it must be expensive. And now I can talk to people about and dispel some myths that,
Right.
no, they don't use really more gas unless especially if you stay out of
Yeah.
them. And
Yep.
yeah, they are easy to tune because they're staged. You drive off of one, and like a tri-power, you drive off one carburetor, you kick the others in as a secondary. So it actually helped, make some more conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Well,
what you
resto mods are pulling big money, man. They're outdoing the originals.
by far, by a stretch. Now I remember, I go back far enough to remember watching Barrett Jackson when it started, and other auctions where resto mods were frowned on. They were
Mhm.
like pariahs. Like, this car is, they didn't call it resto mods, they called them clones. Just like muscle car. The term muscle car was coined like in the 80s.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they were called supercars, believe it or not. That's what the magazines called them. They called them supercars. So, that's just some histrionics. But back in the day, if a car came across the block and they knew or got wind that something was changed and it was rebadged, that car was like a pariah. And
Yeah.
oh, it's a clone, and a clone was a bad thing. Um, but now, like you said, you see now the cuffs are off. Now guys build cars, like, look what guys like, take it to the nth degree. Guys like Foose and
Mhm.
all
Yeah.
those guys. I mean,
Yeah.
they're in the realm of the high dollar custom cars, going back even to the 50s. I mean, those cars are super ridiculous. But just even a car like a guy like me can build, build a resto mod. Yeah, a lot of stuff isn't stock. It handles better. It drives better. It performs better, and yeah, you can get the same amount or more money.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad to see that changed in the hobby. It always reminded me, being riding Harley Davidsons. When I came into that world, there's one or two ways of doing it. Again, you could be a stock guy and you want everything perfect and original, but most guys coming into the Harley world, so all the guys I know, we were all, butchering it and changing things and, cutting them up. So it was just like the hot rods, doing the same thing with the cars as the bikes, and the aftermarket. The Harley Davidson aftermarket blew up. Now I
Yeah.
had a Honda before my Harley, and it was like, I mean, aftermarket. Yeah, what could you get? You could get a seat, a sissy bar, a header,
Mhm.
uh, and maybe some luggage and stuff. Maybe some velocity stacks. That was about it.
It's
There
still
really wasn't. What's that?
I said it's still like that. Hard to get stuff.
There was not a lot of big. Well, for some of the bikes they're on now, but there wasn't a lot of aftermarket support. So, you were kind of handcuffed with what you did. With the Harley, sky was the limit. Whatever you want to do, you could do, and guys did it.
Yeah.
So, now fast forward to when I got my BMW. I think I told the story. I found out that a friend of mine has the same bike as mine, but a year newer. And his came. I'm looking at it like, what's with this brake lever? He had an adjustable brake lever on his, where it has a thumb wheel where you can actually bring the lever closer to the bar or further out to get a different throw without changing the hydraulics at all. It's all just a cam on the lever. So I said, wow, that's really cool. I went down to the BMW dealer that I was dealing with, and I actually looked it up online. This was in the 90s, so we had internet. I looked it up online. I found a part number. I went in and I said, look, I need one of these. Guy takes the paper. He looks at it, goes to the computer. He says, it's a brake lever. I'm like, yeah. I said, you got it? He goes, yeah, I have it. He goes, but this won't fit your bike. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, this is for, a 94. You have a 93. I said, yeah, I know, but it's just a brake lever. He goes, yeah, but the book says it's for a 94. Not, I said, dude, have you ever changed a brake lever in your life? You realize there's a retainer. You take the pin out, you take the lever out, put a little grease on it, you put the new lever in, drop the pin, put the retainer on, and you're done. That's the extent of doing that job. I'll do it outside in like 5 minutes. And he was like, yeah, but it's not listed for your bike. I'm like, wow, these guys are really bad. I said, okay, I'll sign a waiver if you want. I said, just sell me the freaking lever. And and of course I put it on the bike and it was fine. But
Yeah.
that's that dealer mentality of no, 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 it's not made for your bike.
Yep.
Those guys, I love playing with those guys because then I told them, yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to do a little work and I'm going to repaint the bike. Oh, do you want us to get you to paint? I was like, no, no, you don't have to. I'm not going to pay through BMW. He goes, well, where else are you going to get it? You have a source? I'm like, well, I'm going to use like House of Color or something. He goes, you're going to use aftermarket paint? I was like, yeah. It was
So
like,
are you?
you can see like the smoke coming out of his head, like I just shorted out his circuit. He was like, no, you can't do that. No, I'm like, dude, I can do whatever the hell I want. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm coming off riding a Harley. We put fucking house parts on that thing if we had to. I put car parts on my bike. Yeah, those guys. I love screwing with them. I really did because they were just so Kool-Aid drinking dealer trained.
Right.
I'm sure Brian's got some stories like that too. He's
Yeah,
probably.
let's get the fellas in and see what
Yeah,
they're talking about.
let's bring him in. Hey, Jimmy.
Hey.
Brian.
Hey guys, just to go back on, like you were saying, they changed the word clone to tribute.
Oh yeah, tributes. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, now that's not a bad word because that's how that it's funny when you start talking about that, you can see that, like you said, the change. Back then, you put all that money in, you couldn't even get half of the money that you put into it. That's why they were saying how much it was a waste of time and that you never get your money out of it. And that was a bad word. But now they don't use the clone; they use the tribute.
I think the only time that may be a little different is if it's on one of those sites that you're watching with the redheads.
Hey, easy, cowboy.
You know what I'm saying? Just
it ain't the after show yet.
That's
why
we're
being
clean. Yeah.
But
I always remember the tributes more as being, maybe I missed something in the translation, but I always remembered hearing tribute when it was like somebody's, like they recreated a race car, like they did a jungle gym car or something. Then they called it a tribute. I kind of missed it where the clones became tributes, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, of course, the biggest thing is anything original now from, like original Z28, original SS, original GTO are just getting stupid amounts of money.
Oh,
so
sure.
Even if you wanted to, you couldn't afford one. Now, of course, you got the whole thing about there's a pile of rust on the driveway. It used to be a GTO,
right?
But I want $100,000. I know what I got.
I'll give you a good example, Jim. A friend of mine, these two guys that I hang with, they like to buy and sell once in a while. And the one fellow sends me a link to a 68 Camaro the other day. It's down here on the South Shore. And nice car, black. It's got an original 327. Does look like it's been changed. The interior looks like he modified the console, kind of put a different top on it, cup holders, and put a different, like a B&M shifter in it. And it's badged as an SS, has the SS hood, which is really rare these days. And the guy was very upfront saying this car is he didn't call it a clone. I guess he called it, no, he didn't call it a Restomar. I think he said it was a clone. Because this is not an original RSSS. It's, I created it. So he's upfront right away, and he's still asking like $30,000 for the car. And the question is it worth it? So I think my buddy's going to go take a look at it. I'll go with him if he needs another set of eyes. And, he's looking to maybe get it in the 20s somewhere. And even that, for a 68 Camaro that's rebadged, that's good money.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, some of that stuff, as well as I do, parts it depends on what kind of parts. And some of the parts, are hard to come by.
Oh, yeah.
And, that's like, and it's funny, like you said, I've been stockpiling parts for, years for the Mustang. And it's funny because, some of this, I don't want to say stupidest, but some of the things that you would never imagine are now virtually impossible to come across. Like the louvers on the car, some of the finding original headlight doors that aren't broken or that have been fixed. And some of those guys, like I said, if you got something rare or something kind of different and you want to try to find those things, it's
So-
hard.
So the aftermarket hasn't responded with those parts?
Well, there is aftermarket, but it does, again, it's like everything else. You buy it aftermarket and you guys spend 5-10 hours trying to make the aftermarket thing fit.
Mm.
Sometimes that's true, yeah.
And or you spend so much time. That was like the end caps for mine. Mine didn't fit right. I got a picture the day I brought the car home. I was already trying to line it up right. I mean, I couldn't get it, wouldn't fit right. I mean, this was. I mean, my mom was like, "You haven't even had the car an hour, and you're taking it apart already." You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I ended up with I've got 6 sets, so it's 12 of these things.
Yeah.
And the guy that did that did the work on on the car, he went through all of them and found the ones that fit the best.
Well, yeah, I told you when I had my car in the body shop this last time, my car was blasted in the right rear before I got it. And it was repaired. They hung a full quarter on it, but the whole filler panel between the lights was waffled. That got repaired the first time around. So I guess just because of all the trauma that went on, my quarter panel extension is bigger than yours. And that side just never really fit.
Hey, don't rub it in, okay? I mean, just because you little guys have that type of mentality, just easy, okay?
All right, okay. Well, we got to get it while we can, We got to take those shots when we get them.
Big guys have feelings, Mine might not be as big as yours, but let's go easy, all right?
Yeah, feel this. So anyway, what I was going to say was, now my buddy at the shop called me and said, "All right, listen." He goes, "I know you have more of these." He goes, "Why don't you bring them to the shop and let's fit each one and see if we can get one that's a best fit." And we did, and it ended up a little bit of massaging here and there, and I think they did a little bit of work on the edge of the quarter panel, and now both sides of the car are nice. It finally worked out right.
Yeah, that's like the headlight doors, because once that was another thing. So you got if you had messed up headlight buckets, so then you went to go put the headlight door on, it wouldn't fit.
Yeah.
And reworking all that, and I can't believe of all the dumpsters I used to hit with my Mustang, my headlight buckets were still good, so I didn't have any of that problems. But I do have a couple spares.
Yeah. Well, anybody who knows me and who's ever talked to me about cars, thank you. Especially if they asked about, buying a car. And this happens a lot. Hey, check this out. What do you think about this car? And I can be super critical. I can be hypercritical. But, just by looking at pictures, I said, okay, let me just give, my stock answer is usually, you know what? Even if this car's hiding a lot of secrets, you couldn't buy one that was worth restoring and get it in that shape for the kind of money the guy's asking for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just true every single time. Even like this Camaro, even if my buddy gets it for 22, 24, 25, whatever, and underneath, there's rust or something. All right, that can be repaired. The rest of the car looks good. So, okay, if you got to put maybe $4 or $5 grand into the bottom of it to repair some rusted sections, you're still within that realm of what the car could be worth, on an average day. So to start from scratch, I tell people, you know what? Start from scratch. Find a car that you want that needs restoring and get it to that shape. And when you get it there, call me, because it's going to take a few years, but once you get there, give me a call. Let's see how far down the road you are with the money, how much you've spent. And you'll probably be selling that car unfinished to get back your money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Happens all the time. But Brian, there's only a few guys left. Like, we're among them here, who are tenacious and stubborn enough to not give up. And that's it. You have to not. I told the story many times. I'd be out there in the garage and I'd come in, every day, and I'd through the dirty work, I'd be filthy, and then when it got to be clean, that was nice. But some days my wife would say, "Hey, you're in a little early. What's the matter?" And you look a little weird. Like, yeah, had a bad day. The garage is locked. I said, I took 3 steps forward, but 5 steps back. I said, just like I said before, Lewis, the thing I planned to put in and do didn't work. It just didn't work. So I got to go back to square -3. I said, and I told her, I said, but here's the difference. I said, I know a lot of guys who they'll stay away from it and they'll just say, fuck, that car hurt me. I'm like, I'm not going to go out there. And they don't. And a week turns into a month, into 2. Seasons change. Lawn furniture, pool toys go on top of the car. Next year, they're doing something else. They're golfing. They got a new hobby. And before you know it, the car's getting sold and you got to dig it out because you can't even find it. I said, that's not going to be me. I said, I'm going back out there tomorrow. I'm going to lick my wounds tonight. I said, where's that bottle of gin? I said, and I'll be out there tomorrow and I'll take it apart and do it again. That's it. That's all. And that's exactly what I did. And I urge people to do that. I say, become the most stubbornest SOB that you could ever think of when it comes to restoring that car.
Yeah.
And just don't give up.
When I was restoring features, there was days I came in the house, I was like, man, I'm buying a new bike. And the wife was like, no, you ain't. You're going out and finish that bike.
Yeah.
She pushed me back out there.
I tell people too, listen, if it gets that bad, call for help, call in the landline, call a friend. We all got friends who do what we do. Ask a buddy just to help you out one day. And maybe that's enough to get you going. I told a story, my friend Paul with the GTX, that happened to him. He did a lot of metal work, in and out of rocker panels, floor sections. And of course he had the nose off the car, he had the doors off, and and then when he had it all done, and he worked through the winter in a 1-car garage, and it was cold out there, and like every day he'd send me texts, and I'd say, man, this was before I was doing my car. I was like, wow, that's got to be me, man. I got to do that too, but that's gonna suck. It's cold out there, but I was happy for him, and I urged him on. I was a cheerleader, and then he had a problem, and he called me up, and he says, I got a problem. He goes, I hung a fender, and I went to put the door on, and they come nowhere near matching, and I can't make it line up. And I was like, well, I'm not a body man. I said, but I know guys who are. And I brought my friend TJ over there, and he looked at it. He took one look at it, and he says, wow, who did all this metal work? Paul's like, well, I did. He goes, you did nice work. All the metal work is nice. The welding is beautiful. He says, but you didn't solve the problem. He says, this car was hit right here between the door and the fender, and he showed him where on the cowl. He goes, it was hit here, so there was some damage. And Paul said, yeah, I saw that. He goes, well, what you didn't see was, now the car's all gutted inside. He pointed over to the passenger side. He goes, look at the other side of your tunnel. It's kinked over there. That whole section moved, kinked. He goes, until you pull that out, everything you did now is not in the same plane as the rest of the floor. He said, so Paul's like, well, what do you say? What do I got to do? He goes, you got to cut this metal out, which is all finished welded, and you got to pull, and then you have to redo it. And I saw the color drain out of his face, and he knew that the guy wasn't bullshitting him. So he says, yeah, okay. Well, what happens? Paul closed the garage door.
That was it.
I think there was a bit of an embarrassment factor too, that he did all that and missed the main part, and he was dejected, and I felt so bad for him. He didn't touch that car for the better part of a year, and then finally I always wanted to say something, but I didn't know what to say. And so one day I said to him, he built a new garage, and I said, hey, is GTX going to come in here? And he's like, yeah. He goes, I know what I got to do. And he says, will the guys at the shop take a look at it and do the pull? I said, well, I'll put them in touch with you, and you make the deal. And they did. He brought the car in, and they did the pull, put it on the chassis machine and pulled it. And then he had to buy the metal again, because once you cut it out, it's garbage. So that was, probably $1,000 worth of metal. and a lot of pride. Like his throat was like he was choking for a year, and now the car is going back together again. He's got the motor in it. He's making great strides. So big setback, but thank God he didn't lose. I think what it was is he bet his wife. She said this car will never run again. He says, "Oh yeah." He goes, I'm gonna buy a straw hat. You're gonna eat the hat if once this car's done. She goes, "Okay, I'll do it." So I want to be there when he tries to collect on that bet. But I came over with my car a couple of years ago. He's like, see, look, Ray did his car. She's like, wow, it looks nice. She goes, yeah, but was his as big of a piece of crap as yours? I'm like, listen, they all have their problems. They all have their problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was afraid with mine. Same thing, about putting it together. And I had one of my body shop owners. He stopped by and he kind of looked it over. And of course, those guys, they don't need a tape measure. They know.
Right.
They're just looking at it. He's like, look, dude, he said, you could be a quarter of an inch off. That's, you have this much room to play, so just do it.
Yeah, depending on what you're doing, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm just saying in general, you got so much, there's a lot of, on the older stuff, it's not as.
Yeah, they didn't come perfect.
They weren't built that way, right?
Yeah. But like I said, that was, like I said, that's the biggest problem with a lot of these cars. They want to, try to overcompensate and make them too perfect. And sometimes they don't look right,
Mark Warman talks about that all the time, where he's been blamed for over restoring cars. And he says, finally in one of the seasons, he got called to task not for over restoring, but for putting a set of Mastercraft tires on a car.
Uh-huh.
And I think a car with Kreger's, and they were railing him up and down on social media. And he addressed it on the show. He said, listen, let me address this right now. He said, we built this car stock original. That's what the owner wanted, but he wanted a couple different changes to make it the way he had it when he owned it back in the day. And that meant Kreger wheels with white letter tires, and that's what we put on it. And I think there was something in the interior, one small thing in the interior. He says, because at the end of the day, the customer is always right. He's paying the bill, and if he wants me to do it, as long as it doesn't affect safety, he says, who am I to say no? So, and I was with him. I said, absolutely. Yeah. But
my when I'm looking for something, I can never find those guys that give up on their cars. Like, you know what I mean? When I'm broke, they pop up all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, that, like you said, the bottom line, that was like me with my F-350. I gotten so fed up, and that thing sat for 3 years. I wasn't going to touch it again.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a picture the other day that's down in Pensacola. It's down in Sarasota, Florida. The guy that bought it, he sent me a picture and said, put new wheels and tires on it. And my brother's driving it, and it's down in running around down there. And we talked. We talked for a little bit, and he said it was way more than what he ever expected, but he wasn't. He wanted it, and he wasn't going to give up on it. And
right.
But like I said, I was at the point with it. I wasn't going to touch it again. I wasn't going to put another dollar in it again.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And
so Jim, I've been getting in my feeds a lot of station wagons popping up. There's some hot ones, man. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of crazy people like me out there.
Yeah.
I came across. You look at actually there's a guy who posts a lot of Long Island drag racing Hall of Fame, he calls it. It's all from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And it'd be amazed how many people in stock and super stock ran station wagons.
Oh, yeah.
It was better.
No, that was a well-known That was a well-known fact back then. First of all, in the beginning, it was kind of a best kept secret, and then it got out that the weight transfer was better. I mean, it's a big box of air.
Yeah.
But, back when I was growing up, down the block from me, there was a guy. He campaigned a '57 Chevy, American flag pattern. This is back in the '70s, and he ended up buying a '68 or '9 Nomad wagon as his tow vehicle. And his wife drove it during the week. That was her daily driver. But one week at the track, he was out like in the first round with the race car, and he said, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna drive all the way home. Let's run the tow car." Because he had like a hot 350 in it, put a trailer package in, shift kit, the whole bit, and he came home with a trophy for his tow car. But funny.
Yeah, 78 Malibu popped up, man, and it was pretty nice.
Those are hard to find.
Yeah.
I remember when they were dime a dozen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, my wife had one when we were dating.
I actually stupidly, but it's what happens. I passed on one. It wasn't a wagon. It was a two-door. It was a car, but it had, and I think it was a 305, or was it a 267? I forget which engine was in that year. Anyway, it was a small 8, but it was a 4-speed car, a factory 4-speed, and I, bucket seat 4-speed. I could have bought it from the guy, but I didn't really need another car, and it was kind of like not a hot performer or anything. So, I didn't. But yeah, now that'd be great to have. A lot of fun.
Yeah, fun car to run.
Oh yeah.
Full chassis cars. They don't weigh a whole lot. And one of the things I remember back in the day, they said because they kicked the windshield angle was a little bit better, so it was more aerodynamic than like a 68, 69 Chevelle.
Okay. Yeah. No, I loved every wagon I ever had.
I can't quite say that. There was one wagon that bit me in the butt.
I mean, I had some dogs too. Like I had a 60 for a very brief amount of time, a 66 Falcon wagon. I had one of those for a very short. It was a straight 6. I think I ended up driving it to Shea Stadium to junk it.
One of my cars.
And then I had my '65 Chevy wagon. That was the first one I ever had. Again, that was a 6-cylinder car, Power Glide, and it was my daily driver. But that was the one that I really. It was my communications bomb, because that's the one I put the Lafayette Comstat base station radio in with a Turner Plus 2 power mic, 202-inch co-phase whips, and a 40-amp linear in the spare tire well. And I used to blow base stations. I used to key that mic and I'd splash base stations. But again, that was back in the heydays of CBs. So
yeah, that was 70s.
I'm surprised I didn't melt the electrical system in that car. I really am.
My first wagon was a car with a 68 Malibu wagon that if Joe D is listening, he not only did he drive that car, he actually helped build that car for the auto parts store that used it. It was called War Wagon, because anytime there was something going on and somebody needed help, they piled everything in the War Wagon and went out.
So it was a 68 what, Malibu?
Malibu, yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
that was a pretty cool car. I like that car.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, all the wagons, were just like the El Caminos. I mean, from the seat forward, they would just, from the bumper to the seat, it was a car.
Basically a Chevelle.
Yeah, exactly. You just had room in the back. So, yeah.
Yeah, I only had one wagon, and it was actually my brother's. And I wish I loved that thing. And it was a Volkswagen Fox wagon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it was a 2-door, which was kind of rare, manual. And it was one of the last ones that they just weren't really popular. They weren't big sellers.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because I was at the dealership at the time, and I would look at the parts, and it had a 4-cylinder in it, 4-cylinder, 4-speed. And basically, it had, I guess it was a 1.6 maybe a 1.6 or something liter.
Right.
I think that's what it was, 1.6. But what was it? The Jetta had the same motor. I think it was the Jetta had the same motor, but it had more horsepower.
Oh.
And there was a big difference in driving, because you drive a Jetta, and I'm like, I was like, God, I don't understand. And I was looking at injectors and control unit. I'm looking. It's all the same part numbers. And it was funny. There was another guy there. He was more of a parts guy, and he's like, well, did you remove the spacer and the exhaust? And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, up underneath. He goes, pull the spacer out.
There's
And
your
it
horsepower.
had a 2-inch aluminum block that downsized the exhaust to 1 inch.
Oh man, that's
So
that's
yes,
not good.
they were restricting the exhaust on the car.
Sure.
So I pulled that down one day and fiddled around, found another pipe, and instead of doing the cat delete, we did the restrictor delete.
Right.
And it was like a world of a difference. I mean, that car was like completely different. And the funny part was, my brother came home. He was living up there in New York. He came home one day and drove the car, and he's like, what the hell did you do to my car?
That's kind of a thing. You can make a car that's not fast. And I'm not going to say you can make it faster, but you can make it a lot more responsive just by playing with the exhaust. And my Fiat is the perfect example. I drove now this car has a 4-2-1 cast iron header on it. But big deal. So my buddy, who's the guru out here on the island, I drove his wife's car back, I don't know, 15 years ago. And I said, man, this car just accelerates. And not like it was fast. It wasn't like you could burn rubber. It wasn't, not like driving a Grand National. But
it's just real smooth. I mean, the whole motion is smooth.
It accelerated faster. And when I got up to cruising speed, it just cruised better. And he said, really, all I did was, I basic maintenance. He goes, and I changed the exhaust. He goes, I put a header on the engine and a 2-inch exhaust pipe to the back with a muffler. I said, wow, 2 inches? That's kind of big for a 4-cylinder, isn't it? He goes, look, you're driving the car. You tell me. I was like, man, it feels good. So years later, I started looking for this tube header. And, back, like I was saying, it was back in the day, there were IMPA and different places, different companies that made a lot of the, all the foreign car parts. And I knew that it existed in history, but I just couldn't find one. I found a guy on eBay that had one but sold it. So I wrote to him and said, you wouldn't happen to have another one, would you? And he says, he goes, I clear stuff out. He goes, I deal with Fiat parts. He goes, I get them occasionally. He goes, I may get another one. I said, would you please let me know? I want to buy it from you. Well, months went by and he did get back to me and I did buy it. So now I had my 4-tube sheet metal header. I go to my buddy at the Meineke shop in Brooklyn. And I said, Gary, I want a 2-inch exhaust pipe to the back with a muffler. He's, what? I said, just trust me. I said, this is going to work. So now I have this header, took the cat out, 2-inch pipe, and a thrush muffler in the back. And I tell you, it's still not, fast, but I feel it on the highway. When I'm in fifth gear and I'm cruising even at 65, 70, and I hit the gas to make a lane change or to pass somebody, the car just goes. I mean, it's up to like 90 miles an hour. Easily. You can feel it breathing. It's like, actually, one of the guys I used to do the show with us, Mike Timmons, Mikey T, he always used the analogy. He was a big proponent of, freeing up the exhaust system. He says, it's like if you're laying on your back and your fraternity brothers are pouring beer down your throat. You'll keep up with it for a while because if a guy puts his foot on your chest, he goes, you're not going to be swallowing that beer. You're going to kick it back. He goes, that's called reversion. I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
So he said you open up that path and now you can, you can move whatever you're moving, and he was so right. So yeah, so that was my story. It works. It works.
Yeah. Yep. I just increased a little bit of airflow. I changed like I said, we were limited, but like I said, you changed the throttle body, allow them a little more air, a little more coming out the NF tail end. That was a great running car. I tell you, man, that was pretty good until I crammed it up the back of a Toyota Sienna van.
Ah,
I'll do it every time.
Oh yeah, dude. And the sad part about it was it was a really messed up situation because it was where the lanes came down to one, 2 lanes into one, and the lady was going to turn off. She slowed down and she was on turn off, and there was this dude there in a tow truck, and he actually rolled through the light. He had a red light. He kind of rolled out, so she panicked and she jammed on the brakes. If she would have kept moving, I would have never hit her. But when she jammed on the brakes, by that time I was like, oh shit, we're going for it, and I nailed her right in the back. And I must have pushed her, I don't know, it seemed like forever, a good 20 yards out into the intersection. She got out and she said, man, where's the truck that hit me? And she looked over and sees this Volkswagen, and she goes, is that what hit me? And I was like, yeah, I'm really sorry. You okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm okay. She goes, I thought that tow truck was on. I said, I know. I saw the tow truck roll right through that light, or, rolled out. And the car was running. But when it pushed a radiator support, back into the motor, it cut the timing belt cover. And so it was rubbing on the timing belt. And I went to go over, and I'm jerking on the hood to get it up to see how bad it is because it's running. And right when I got the hood up, I said, I got to turn this off because the belt was, popping, fraying off. And all of a sudden, boop, and bent the valves. And I was like, wow. I said, man.
Boy, and you saw it happen.
Huh? Oh, yeah. I was right. I mean, I was like, oh, shit, look at that belt's on break. So I run around and turn the car off. And, man, by that time, it just popped. The belt broke all the way because it was rubbing on the radiator core support and cut right through it. And that was it. That's all she wrote. And I was like,
wow.
Damn. Because I figured I'd just grab a hold of the core support and pull it back. And other than I was picking up Chinese food, and all the Chinese food exploded into the car. Under the impact. So it was the next day. It was a stinky car.
Some for everyone.
Yeah, there was the Chinese food all over the place. Didn't go too well. So. But yeah, I was sad. But that was funny. My brother had that, and he was outside of the Bronx up there, and you had to move the car every other day from one side of the street to the next, and it got pretty bad because. They bust the window and go through it. So finally, he didn't have a radio in it. He left the glove box door open. He got to the point where he just left it unlocked because putting glass in it, And he goes, he was going to move the car, and when he got in the car, there was somebody sleeping in the back. Oh. And he goes, that's how it goes. And then it had gotten towed a couple times. And of course, it's not towed in the city. It's like towed out in the middle of nowhere, and you got to pay $1 million. So he was like, that's it, coming home. And then my dad was like, I don't want this car sitting here. And I said, I'll drive it. And of course, like I said, it was a great car. My brother still holds it against me. that I crushed it, but
What are you gonna do?
yeah.
So I've been looking at Impala SS, Ray.
Oh yeah,
Uh-oh.
They're starting to come down in price.
are they? Boy, they were down, they went up. Now they're coming down again.
Yeah. I can touch one now, I think.
Well, so let me ask you this, because what I've been seeing, at least on the internet, on the YouTube channels I watch that sell cars, the ones I'm seeing that are lower priced, they've really been touched a lot.
Yeah, they've been
Wow.
worked. Yep.
And that's why. That's probably why.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a good, that's one way you get into it. I don't know how the parts availability is anymore.
So I was thinking my buddy's gonna work on the caddy when I'm gone the next couple of weeks.
Uh-huh.
So I'm thinking I might sell that and get the Impala, because that's what I really want is the Impala.
All right. Yeah, then go after what you want, that's for sure. Yeah.
I think
I'm
I'll have
serious
more.
about that, and I hear about one. I'll let you know.
What kind of prices are you seeing by you, Lewis?
5,000-6,000.
Wow, that is low. But how many miles on those cars?
I seen one today. It was 130,000, but it was kind of a little bit rough. Interior is real rough, but
That's the problem with that generation GM for any of those cars. Interiors do not hold up very well. I mean, those are, oh man, those things are.
Yeah, they
really
crack
hard.
up. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I know a guy that can do it.
Yeah.
I know a guy that can do it. As long as you can find the parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seat covers are available from Impalas. I've seen those.
Well, I'll redo them. I'll do them myself.
Well, even better.
Do a custom.
Yeah. If you're not worried about stock, then you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I even noticed my car with, what has it got, 23,000 miles on it? The left seat cover started the leather was getting thin on the outside. I'm not even in the car. I swear to God, it's deteriorating sitting. So I think if I would do something, I would go to an aftermarket shop and have them do the factory pattern, but with real, a little thicker leather.
Yeah. Well, the new vinyl is really nice. It looks like leather. You can't tell.
Okay.
And here's a known fact that when you buy a car with leather seats, the back and the sides are vinyl.
Ah.
Oh.
Unless you order it all the way leather. So that shows you how you can't tell the difference.
Right.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, speaking of seats, I actually was able to get a hold of Bonneville seats, which they're a little bit bulkier.
Yeah.
But they are rough.
Uh-huh.
So I got to take them apart, take care of all the rust, make sure everything is working, and then figure out how I'm going to recover them.
Yeah.
But I can't beat the price. I can't beat the price I paid for them.
Well, yeah, you'll pay that with the recover. No, you'll pay that with the recover.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had I've got the Mustang seats. I mean, I got the seats for the car, but I had I don't know what I did with them. I can't even believe I threw them away. I still don't. I don't. I mean, I still can't believe, because I don't get rid of anything, as you can tell.
right.
But I had Thunderbird seats. That's what I had in the Mustang, and because they were a little wider and they had a better the back support. Instead of being flat, they were a little curved more.
Right.
You had more of a thing, and I really wish, because I'd put those back in. I like, they were a lot better. I mean, they were just better fit and so forth.
Yeah.
And trying to find, I've been looking around, and man, what people want for something that looked like it had been on fire in a dumpster, it's crazy.
Well, yeah, I told you a story years ago. I contracted with a guy who I knew out east to recover my seats, And I bought the factory vinyl, and I said, actually, he was going to use a different seat because I wanted a third, a third 3-point belt. So he was going to take the whatever seats we decided to use. We ended up going with Silverado seats. And he was going to put the factory GTO, the 65 vinyl in the center, so I'd have the pattern, and then just do the outsides, with vinyl, leather, whatever, and put a little bit of bolstering in it and more. So it would look kind of stock, but it would be nicer. And he never did it. He never did the project. He stalled on me. So actually, just with the end of the winter, I started seeing in the OPG catalog and the Ames catalog.
Yep.
The Scat, they have these Scat Pro Car seats, bolstered. They have the 65 vinyl, just what I wanted. It's a little more bolstering than I was going to go for. It looks a little more sports car-ish. So the seat itself is going to look a little more out of place, but it's going to, I think by the level that it's going to look out of place is going to be the same level that it's going to be that much nicer to sit in.
Comfortable, yeah.
So I ordered them, and the brackets to mount them. I got an email just this week that the brackets are back ordered. I haven't heard about the seats. I know they were back ordered too, so I figured I'd get them right around May.
Yeah,
but they haven't showed up yet. So
yeah, they make. I think it's the same thing. They have that for the Mustangs.
Oh, sure.
And then there's a guy. Up on in our cruise, or Sunday morning hangout. He's got them, and I keep looking at them, and it's funny because, like you said, how thick they are, and they're it's very close because he has the like with the deluxe interior, like mine with the pony seats, with the horsies on it, and the two-tone. They're really, really close, but it looks just looks a little out of place in that car. The thickness. There's another guy that has a. That was the guy I was telling you about. That was saying the car was one thing and it was another to the other guy. He's got like these 69 Mach 1 seats in them. Mm-hmm. And I just never liked that in the first generation because, with the high buckets, it just doesn't look right in that car.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. So, but yeah, he had taken his car's orange with white interior. But I keep going back looking at those other seats. I don't know. That's if I could find some of those Thunderbird seats, I'd do it.
Like I said, I know that the comfort level is going to be really, really nice.
Yeah.
They may look kind of funny, but I think I'll probably get over it. I'm hoping I will because I'm paying for the damn things. Let's see. I'll show you.
First time you take an exit ramp a little bit more spirited than it should have, you'll appreciate those seats.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, that's definitely when you see it. But let's see here.
I wonder how many people died back in the day on those bench seats, hitting the corner, sliding.
Sliding around.
I did that once.
So this is what they.
Okay, yeah.
So they're definitely more bolstered than I would have done, but that's the exact pattern. It's diagonal that goes two different ways, and it's pretty cool that they.
Is that like factory with the emblem in the center?
Yeah.
Or do they add that?
No, that's the Pontiac Arrowhead that's in the factory seat.
Yeah.
So that is that middle part is exactly what the factory seat looks like without the bolsters.
Mm.
So
good.
That's why I said, hey, you know what? Screw it. Let's just do it. And there we go.
They look kind of comfortable. You might be in there asleep.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And they have like 26 adjustments. The back comes down, up and down, and all, which is good because see, I originally, you might say, so why don't you just do the 65 seats? The problem with the 65 seats is up until 65, the seat backs didn't lock. So if you stop really hard, the seat back can go forward. Or if I had Brian sitting behind me, I'd be in the engine compartment on a really hard brake because, there's no lock. 66 started the lock. But
Right.
so fresh in from band practice.
Hey, Tony.
What's going on, guys?
It's all
Hey,
right.
Tony, what's up?
What's happening?
Oh man, I just Ray, you can relate to this from a
Oh, we
drummer's
can't
aspect.
hear you. We can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
No,
I
I
hear
think
Okay, good.
We're just playing with you.
Yeah, make sure I'm at a different location because last week I told Ray the other day I owe you guys one because at my house the internet kind of sucks. So I'm at my fiance's tonight, which was actually worked out because it's literally right down the street from band practice.
Okay.
But we were at I played on the worst set of electronic drums in my life.
Oh, I think you bring your own kit.
No, because so they were trying me out basically. I played with this lady before on a few like open mic stuff like that. And so she's like, hey, I'm doing this project, blah, 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 blah. So we were at her house and I'm looking at this drum kit and it's, electronic. I played on electric sets before that are really nice. This one was like, oh my gosh, she must have got it from Toys R Us or something because like it was horrible. Horrible.
When they were closing up Sam Ash, me and my buddy Rick, the drummer, Rick, we went and they had a kit there, an electronic kit. It might have been a DW kit. So right away, but I tell you, man, this thing, we just like played, the guy from the store was playing around it. Man, it sounded sweet. It was, you definitely get what you pay for.
Well, this thing probably was, that kit probably was, say $1,000. This kit I was on tonight, if she paid $50, it was too much.
Yeah. So what they have you playing? What were you playing on it?
What kind of kit?
No. What music were you playing?
Oh man, a little bit of Mary J. Blige, some reggae, some Parliament. We were all over the place,
Funkaholic.
Yeah. Yep. So I invited him to my place on the next one because I can't play on this thing. I said I can't play on this thing. So it was just I was very vanilla. Hi-hat, snare, and bass drum. No fills, no nothing.
Wow.
Very vanilla, but it is. So how you guys doing, man?
Yeah. Oh man, blessed.
Doing good.
So I was telling my wife about your experiences on Hayabusas, and I still can't get one. She just won't let me get one. Man.
Nah, those days are over. Your wife is smart.
It's like, I don't care what Tony said. You ain't getting one.
Yes. Yeah. She give me the blues when it comes to the Hayabusa, man. I'm like, I just want it because I like the way they sit. I'm not gonna ride it.
Just tell you want something. You just want one by the front door. When you walk in the door, you just want it there for the hallway greeting.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Nah, stay off.
I'm tall, so that bike fits me nice. You know what I mean?
Got you.
Low and long.
Yeah, stay away, kid. I was actually visiting my mom today, and out of the blue, she asked me, she goes, are you still riding? I'm like, nah, Ma, I gave that up a couple of years ago. She's like, okay, good.
Yeah.
Was she standing there with a shoe in her hand? No, Ma, I gave it up.
No, it's always good. Actually, my mom was one of my biggest supporters. She used to come to the track with me a lot.
Really?
When I used to race, yeah. They liked her so much at Englishtown. Like, I'd go there and it'd be a hot summer day, and the powers to be would be walking through the pits, the naps and stuff like that. Vinny, he would take my mom up to the booth and sit her in the AC.
Oh, nice.
Yep. Anytime your mom's here, don't have her out here. Bring her up in the booth.
That's cool.
Yeah. She was my biggest supporter. So I don't know, Ray, if you told the guys, but I really had fun on Sunday, man.
No, I figured I'd leave that up to you because I wasn't. I usually give someone a few days to think about it, see if they really did have fun or not. But yeah,
Yeah,
Tony was on Sunday. We had a good time.
nah, it
Yeah,
was
I love
definitely
being
great.
on. It's fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of good review. A lot of people gave me a lot of feedback saying, "Man, that was great. That was they liked the show."
Good stuff, man. I definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah,
Definitely enjoyed it.
yeah. We like to have fun.
So as far as the cars, here's one for you guys. Ray, I'm working on a 72 Datsun 240Z,
Okay.
right? And
What year?
72.
Well,
So long story short, got the car going and all of that. Brand new brakes all the way around, the whole lines, the master, the booster, everything. Brand new master cylinder, and the front brakes don't work. You bench bleed it. And I'm like, damn, there's nothing coming out the front. Brand new out the box. This master cylinder is bad, man.
You know what new means? Never
Can I
ever
do-
worked.
Never ever work.
I was going to say, Tony, I got into this jam up a couple times in the past year with cars where I got the fronts to bleed, but I couldn't get the rears to bleed. And what it ended up being was the proportioning valve. It goes, if you have a brake failure, it'll go to the other side to block off that circuit, and you have to recenter the valve.
So
So,
we thought it was the proportioning valve at first,
okay,
because when I was bench bleeding the master before I put it on, it took the fronts a little while to come up through the tubes.
okay.
So I didn't think anything of it. So now I'm bleeding them, and I got a little pressure in the front, but I'm like, nah, something's wrong. So the proportion valve is bad. Changed the proportion valve, and I left the master on. I'm getting nothing. So I'm like, wait a second. So let me start life over. I took it off. I bench bleeded. I'm getting nothing in the front, like
Oh,
nothing.
let me tell you a little trick I learned, and I learned it from reading the sheet that came with the master cylinder. Most places always recommend bench bleeding the master cylinder with tubes, but this company, I forget what car it was for. It might have been for the Mustang. They said to plug the ports on the master and bleed it, and only stroke it an inch at a time, and you watch the bubbles inside, and then bring it to the car. And they said when you put it on the car, leave the plugs in place, hook up the pedal, and push the pedal. You should have a rock hard high pedal because now the master's plugged, the fluid isn't going anywhere. And if the pedal is not super high and rock hard, the master is bad.
Mm.
So I would remove the lines, plug the master with some brass plugs, and just hit that brake pedal and see what you got. That'll conclusively tell you.
Okay, I'm gonna try that tomorrow.
Where'd you get the parts from?
The customer bought them from me.
We were just talking about that, parts availability, and like for Japanese cars, that's like for Japanese motorcycles. I mean, there was more. I'm sure more master cylinders are out there than there were, bike stuff. But yeah, I mean, who's to say that master wasn't sitting on a shelf? I had that happen with a fuel pump. When I had my Challenger, I got a fuel pump for it off the local parts store. Blew the dust off the box. It had been sitting on the shelf since the '80s.
Wow.
It worked for 2 weeks, then failed.
Wow.
Because the diaphragm was just, from heating and cooling cycles.
Right.
So yeah, you may have may have a bad master. Then you find out he got it from like Temu or fucking,
Was it little?
Yeah, it's really not that big. It's kind of, it's not small, but it's not really big.
I've found that usually almost every time, I'll say almost because not a few, almost every time customers brought the parts,
Problem with it.
they cheaped out. Yeah, because that kind of money. Yeah, but now you ride. These are the brakes you're going to be riding on, so now's not cheap out.
Yeah. Well, I looked online, and they're all pretty much the same price. I only saw one, and it looked identical to it. The pricing on these things were about, say, $70 to like $80.
That's not bad.
I saw one that looked identical, and they wanted like $114 for it.
Okay.
I'm like,
but we go right back. We go right back to that stuff's been, it's not, it's new, but it's been sitting around someplace.
Yep.
You're almost. I mean, that's even. I even question about rebuild, like getting a rebuild kit, because you don't know how long that's been sitting around. I mean, that's the stuff that really, that I don't know how to really make it sound right, but it bothers me about, stuff, and it's like, well, it's been, I've had stuff sitting here for 20 years. Is it going? It looks good, feels good, but is it going to last?
It's one thing if you're putting a washer on your garden hose, or you're putting a seal on your brake system. There's a big difference.
Yeah. Or like I said, what drives me crazy is like doing a water pump. It's a lot of work. You tear the whole front end of the motor apart and go through, and especially if you're anal about, we're painting this and color dotting this and doing that. And man, you tear that thing apart 3 times. By the 4th time, you're like, F it, dude. I'm just putting this thing together. And then it looks like crap, and you're pissed off at yourself. So
yeah.
All right, guys, it's time for me to bail.
All right, Jim.
All right,
take care, guys.
Good night, man. Good night.
That's always a problem, deal with customer stuff like that. But I was watching a guy. There's a guy on YouTube, Brian. You might have seen him. He goes by the Wizard. It's a husband and wife. I think they're in. The hell are they? They're out in the Midwest somewhere. And he's got a big shop, and he works on everything from muscle cars. He was doing a video on an E350 Mercedes, and he was showing how to power, why you should flush brake fluid. So that got my attention, of course, because that's one of my big things. So I watch it, and he was saying how he stated all the obvious things, but the way he did it is he hooked up a like a hand pressurized tank. Who the hell's the company I got my bleeder from?
Mighty.
Thank you, Mighty Vac. So it's a Mighty Vac hand pressurized tank. So he pressurized it to like 30 psi, put the adapter on the master, and then what he did is on the caliper, he put it happened to be a snap-on machine, but it was the same as my Mighty Vac, the one that you put shop air on and it pulls. And he had them both on there. I was like, man, dude, you're cramming it down the throat and you're sucking it out the bottom. I thought that was a little overkill, but this is how he claims he likes to do it. I was like, wow, I never saw anybody do that.
That's a little too much, I think.
Yeah. What are your, Tony, what are your favorite bleeding methods? I mean, I go through stages.
So you know what's funny? I just bought one of those tools that you hook up to the compressor and suck it through.
All right, I saw the one you bought. Yeah. Right.
I mean, it works okay, but I use my my one-man method where I don't even use that because I hate the noise of the compressor. It's just too loud, man.
Oh, yeah.
So I got my little Poland Spring bottle that I put my tube through, put a little brake fluid.
The one-way valve, yeah.
Yep, put it on the thing, and I got my stick, and I got the car in the air where I could watch it, and I take my stick and press the brake until I see the bubbles no more, go close it. And
we talked about that at your shop. I forget what car you were working on, and we were talking about, it was a Corvette, and we were talking about that. And I said, I use a broom handle to, and I usually put it through the steering wheel so that it stays in place. And you said, look, I'll show you mine. And you had one.
Exactly.
The problem is I like to see the fluid going into the bottle, and you can't always see all 4 wheels. It's a problem. So.
Yep. So that's my favorite method. I wasted money buying that suck out thing, Well,
they work. I found out with the one that I have the Mighty Vac one, and the on-off switch for the air, it'll go a good amount of degrees. And I found that sometimes if I don't put it full on, if I leave it only halfway, or between a quarter and a half and let it slowly pull, it does a better job. It doesn't, because sometimes it kind of aerates the fluid. It makes little bubbles that are not, you only want to see those big bubbles. That's the bad stuff.
Right. So I also bought one of those Phoenix things. I was watching.
I have one of those too.
What's that guy? David on Mav TV.
Okay.
But anyway, where it pushes it through.
It's a reverse bleeder.
Yeah. So on the same Datsun, when I was bleeding the brakes before, I started at the rear wheel and I'm pumping the thing up, and then the damn handles stopped working. It's like,
really?
I'm like, this thing is brand new.
Well, okay. Let me ask you this. Well, let me explain to you how I use my Phoenix bleeder. I'll put the hose in the brake fluid bottle, and I take the other hose that comes out that you put on the caliper, and I put that back. I use that little cone that fits into the top of the bottle.
Right.
So I'll put that in the top of the cone, and what I'll do is I'll stroke that the bleeder until it fills the cylinder.
Correct.
So all the fluid just goes back into the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll put it on the wheel.
Right.
And inject it.
That's what I did. That's like priming the system.
Mine has a wheel on it, so I can adjust the amount of cc's per stroke.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had some issues in the beginning where I had trouble with it, but I found that tool works really good if I have a car where I put everything in it new master, new calipers, new wheel cylinders.
And that's how I started off with this one, because everything was new.
Yeah.
The Phoenix one we used to use because it was a pain bleeding the clutch slave cylinders. So we would reverse bleed them, and that usually took care. But I have mine's very ancient, but it's you air pressure the tank, and then you bleed through, and that was a factory tool that we used on the German junk, and that usually took care.
I just watched the guy last night. It was a break. He was doing. Isaac said that the guy's name is the Car Wizard from Wichita, Kansas, and he'll be on in a few. So that's correct. But so it got me thinking. I was sleeping. And I actually had a dream. I dream about tools. I actually had a dream, Brian, that you called me because you got a guy in a shop who was like he's in trouble. The shop's he's having trouble selling bills. He's selling off a lot of his tools, and he's got a whole pressure bleeder kit, and he wants to sell it back to you. And you're like, "Do you want it?" I was like, "You don't even have to ask me. Just send it to me." So I actually dreamed that you found me one.
Wow!
You never know, Ray. It might come true.
I know.
What's going on, guys?
Hey, Vince.
Hey, Vince.
What's up?
Yo.
Yeah, I would like to apologize for what happened Sunday, Ray. That was kind of out of my control.
What are you apologizing for?
Well, when I was calling the radio show and I hit a bad spot and boop, gone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but he was having phone problems because I was trying to call in.
Oh, that you were on the other line? Yeah.
I kept trying to call in, and he was over there like, "We got to reset this. Pull the switch."
That's what happened. It was like you crossed
because, like I said, I was running. I was running to the other town there, and I said, because I always listen to the radio show whether I call in or not or what, and it's just like, so I was like, well, hell, it's excuse me. I said, I got a minute, and it's a decent. So I put my headphones and all that in, and then I called, and like Brian will say, first time it just rang and rang and rang and rang, and then it's like, you get the message that the phone they kick on, this customer's not available. So okay, so I gave it a minute, hit redial, it rang about 3 or 4 times, then it picked up and went to hold. So I was like, okay, not new to not new to radio. It's like, okay, they picked it up and I'm in the queue now.
Right.
And then a couple minutes later you introduced it. It's
right. Yeah, it happens. We're always the phone's lit. Tony, man, Tony lit the phones up. That was and that's it's great. I love having the calls, but like sometimes you want to spend some time with the guy in the studio. You're talking about stuff and you want to get information, and then the phone keeps ringing. Now, I don't have to answer the phone, of course, but you want the calls. You want it too. So it's always a day.
Excuse me. Thank you.
So
Hey, Vince was sending me KZs.
Me too.
Oh man, I'm a KZ fan, man.
Well, that's that. If one of those Lewis is one that he, like I said, it's lowered. It's I think it's stretched out slightly, and it's got the green 3-spoke wheels on it. Those are the same wheels I have on mine when I changed it to the LTD front end and pulled the cop, because that's what mine was, a J model. It was an old Chips motorcycle.
Okay.
So we put an LTD front end on it, and that lowered it. We found it an F3 Honda swing arm bolts right in. It is an inch longer.
Oh, yeah.
So we just little tricks here and there. And after a few chats with Ray, I seriously get a few things squared away. I'm going to talk to or try to have a little meeting with Christian and see, because I would take him what I have and go, this is what I've got. This is what I see in my head, which is a lot like a lot of those KZs that guy's doing, that low stretched out. That's the bike I see up here. And
those things are sexy, man. KZ with the ducktail.
Oh yeah, I have all that stuff. I've got because being a police bike, it had the full fender front and rear. It had the pad on the back for the radio box and all, and it had the full fairing like a Road Glide that mounts to there was an extension about like this that came off the neck, and that's where the fairing mounted to. So it wasn't a handlebar mounted fairing, which drew me to the Road Glide, because it's the same. The Road Glide on the Harley is the same way. That fairing is not mounted on the bars, because I know guys that have got Ultra Classics and Ultra Glides, and they'll tell you get a good cross breeze, and all of a sudden that wheels, it starts bobbling that handlebar in your hands there. That's not a comforting feeling.
Yeah.
What's up, Coach?
How much? How's it going?
Oh, just another day, another dollar.
Living the dream.
I've been working on having to retile the shower. I know I put it in the group chat.
Yeah, that's good.
A few weeks back. Yeah, here. I sent a picture to Lewis right now, but let's see if this will.
Aww.
A little glare.
Yeah, let me see. Let me try this. See if it calms down. Usually, if I darken the screen a little bit, it'll.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Nice.
Yeah, that's good.
Housework. Getting sick of it.
Oh yeah. Well, and I had to get it through my thick head, because I'd come home from working at the school and then coaching, and depending on if we have a game, calculating the hours, I'm doing about anywhere from 10 to 12 hours a day. And then I'd come home and I'd start setting stuff up, and then I'd sit on the couch and crash hard. And I'm like, man, I should be able to do this. What's going on? So I'd have to do it. Yeah, I'd have to do it. That's how I was feeling. And I had to do it on the weekend. And then we'd have like on Sundays a birthday party or something. So I couldn't really do much on Sundays. So it kept dragging on. And then finally I was sitting there thinking about it. I was like, you know what? I'm working so many hours already, and I'm nuts to think I should be able to be putting in another 3 hours. I mean, there's a few nights I did, and it was 10, 11 o'clock at night by the time I got done and cleaned up, and crawling into bed at midnight for the alarm to go off at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And I had to get it through my thick head. I'm working. I'm burning the candle at both ends. I need to calm down.
Gee, you do what I do? If you have a late night, you just sleep later the next day.
Yeah, but I got to get down to the school.
Right.
I'm talking about the weekdays. Yeah.
There's a 4-letter word there, right? I forgot.
Working shift.
That's
yeah.
fine. Yeah.
Not make your friends that way, Ray.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
I know all the friends I'm going to make, Brian.
I'll be your friend, Ray.
Yeah, I know.
And I learned the hard way. I'm not really done tile before. When I was younger, I helped my dad, but that's so many years ago. But I put in the mosaic, and that first stripe at the top, I put that in, and there was a gap because the mosaic's so much thinner. And so then I started pulling up on the internet, well, how can I blend this? And the way to blend it
Oh, wow.
And redo it. And last week I told my daughter, I said, you'll have your shower back. You won't have to use mine. And she goes, well, that's good. I'm going to be in Phoenix quite a bit this week, and I won't be home much. So that'll give you time to do it. You don't have to worry about me complaining. And she comes home and she goes, what the hell happened? And that's after I tore everything back out. And she asked my mom or my wife, what the hell happened? And she goes, don't mention it to your dad. He's already madder than hell. He's got to redo it. Because I told her I'd be done.
It's a touchy subject.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Lewis Lee, what's your schedule look like nowadays?
I don't have a schedule.
Well,
wide open, baby.
Well, the reason being is I made a delivery. What day is it? Wednesday, to a place in Orlando, or just outside of Orlando, and they have a toter and a stacker that they're trying to sell.
Really?
And the toter needs help. It needs your touch, because, and you know how the older toters have the you know, done like an RV with the plywoods or press board roofs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, it needs some woodwork because the roof is just, obviously they had some issues. Yeah. And I'm wondering how long it would take a man of your talents and persuasions to
tweak it,
to redo this and bring it to something more modern, like that sleeper, like that you said, that you could redo that $90,000 sleeper a lot cheaper and put your twist on it and let you know, because the cabinets like you've gotten bust are awesome, and all that woodwork and that, and it is just, it's killer. And I wished I could do woodwork like that, but it's just like, I can twist wrenches. I can't work on wood.
Well, I'll be back here in Ohio July, so I'll be here for a couple weeks in July. Yeah, that might be a plan.
Yeah, like I said, they have it. Like I said, it's a double stacker. C, what is it? Like the M2 platform Freightliner, like a C12, 112 or something. So it's they technically are like a Class 7, but it's I don't remember. It's, again, I looked at it and realized the inside was going to need some work. The stacker itself was locked, so I didn't get to see how it's set up, but they don't use it. It's just sitting there in their parking lot, and they're talking about wanting to get rid of it. And I was like, well, I know a few racers here and there.
Yeah.
So
now, let me ask you this: Do you have tools at your house, like table saw, stuff like that?
No, I sure don't. My uncle had all that stuff, but unfortunately, he's no longer with us, and I don't know where any of that stuff. Like I said, he had a full woodworking shop. He could turn spindle for tables and routers, and he could do the full bananas with the woodwork. And when he passed away, I don't know what happened to all that stuff he had in his shop. So
I was gonna say, I'll come down there and do it at your place.
It would be easier probably to take it up there where bring it to you where you have everything, or you're not looking, oh, I need this. You know where it's at.
Right.
So, like July, I said,
July might be a plan. Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, I'm still kind of feeling it out, because they're, it's one of those that we need to sell it and this and that, and it's just sitting there and a nice, double stack, because it's like I said, it's a double stack, and
that's nice. That's rare to have a double stack.
So what is that exactly that you're talking about?
It's a, what a toter is? What they mean by a toter?
Toter
motor. That's what I'm asking you. What the hell are you talking about?
Well, no, that's fine. That's fine.
No clue.
A toter is where they take like a Class 7 or Class 8 truck, which, Class 8's a semi, Class 7 is like a straight truck. It's that same heavy duty big platform. They take and they put a, like the big sleeper box on it and all that. Okay. And it's like this one's got like the driver's area. Then it's got like a little lounge, and then like a little kitchenette, and then a bathroom and a shower and all that. And that's all in the toter. Okay. And it's set up on the back. And this one has got a back door on the toter. So you got the two doors on the side and one back on where it's like a gooseneck style trailer. So it's got like a small, the fifth wheel for a gooseneck. Uh-huh. And then the trailer itself is what they call a stacker. It's literally 25 or 30 foot, and it's set up for where you can stack cars on top of the race cars on top of each other.
Gotcha. Okay, got
so that's against why they call it a stacker. It's that's a toter. That's like a toter.
Okay.
No, that's a straight truck. That's like the one I used to drive almost, but that's the same idea. It's a chassis like that, and then they, excuse me, and then I think I've got a couple pictures of it from when I was down there before. These guys are really cool. I think the name of the business was RC Shocks. They do custom coil springs and struts and all that for all kind of stuff. They're into drifting and a lot of different stuff. Really good bunch of guys. They're all car guys. You know, you pull into the parking lot and it's obvious because there's a Slam Silverado and some import stuff, some JDM stuff, and it's, you know, everything's all tricked out, and everybody there is really cool. They're all gearheads, and you know, even the girls have got tricked out cars and stuff. So it's a really good bunch of people. It's and like I said, I just happened to be shooting the breeze with the guy as he was offloading, and I was like, you know, what's up with the stacker and the toter over there? And he goes, man, during COVID, we use that thing all the time. He says, but we've gained traction and we're so busy. We're just filling orders, doing R&D. They were, you know, like I said, they do a lot of drifting and stuff. So they were going to be somewhere in Orlando. They said they had a track they were going to be renting and, you know, doing a lot of R&D stuff and some promotional stuff with the drifting and all that. So, you know, they had what was it sitting there with? They were LS swapping something, and it was on the back of the dock. Was it a rabbit?
A LS rabbit?
LS rabbit?
They had all kind of stuff. It's
wow.
Well, you know, what's his name in Canada? Rich DeBoss, one of his guys that he works with had an LS2 and was putting it in a, what is it, a 412? I think it is a VW, like a square back or a notchback. I just remember it's a VW 412 is I think what they called it, and the guy was literally had measured it out to wheelbase, and he goes, I can put a tube chassis and an LS and all that and leave the exterior damn near stock, other than opening up the wheel wells to get tires in it. He goes, but other than that, he goes, we've measured it out. We get the motor, transmission, tunnel. He goes in like you know, in the Volkswagen, and they've done 2 or 3 episodes on that of doing the builds and all that, and they hadn't really done much with it lately. But you know, again, Rich, you know, that channel DeBoss, they do everything from dump trucks to tractors to EVs. They're doing retro kits for EVs and stuff. I mean, there's, you know, it's, you know, he's really just, if it's got, like, you know, like you say, Louis, if you can turn a wrench and put gas in or oil in it, they're into it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be a fun project.
Yeah, like I said, I've got his number, and I got to talk to Zach a little bit, and he was supposed to be checking with them to see, you know, if they wanted to sell it. He goes, because they need to. It's in their parking lot, taking up a big chunk of their parking lot.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Like I said, I'll drop a dime and just see if they, you know, it might be one of those that, you know, they him and haw, and it just sits there because nobody wants to mess with it and all that. And it's at that point, you know, you just kind of walk away and going, hey, they just, you know, they don't want to sell it, or it's tied up or something. So
do you want to flip it or you want to use it?
Oh, I don't have a car right now to do it. So I mean, it would be one of those probably a flip, because I know at one time they were somebody was advertising that you couldn't buy a toter and a stacker for love nor money, because there were a couple people that were like, man, we've got money, and they're saying it's going to be 6 to 9 months before, and they're like, we've got the money, we can pay for it, and they're like, they're not there.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was what they, you know, what the guy kept saying. Of course, this was a while back, so I don't know if that was.
They're still that way. Trying to get something built or bought, it's still a waiting list.
Yeah, it's, again, and if you have something that's, I hate to say generic, but pretty flexible, where, you know, muscle car guys could use it, the import guys could use it. A drag racer or something like that Camaro, or like that Firebird I showed Ray today, or, you know, just, you know, if it was usable, well, then that makes it definitely more appealing. Where, So
and you get more for your money too. Like that cab or that sleeper you sent me the other day. There's no way that's worth $90,000.
who knows? Like I said, there's so much of that truck related stuff I get sent, and I know you enjoy some of that truck stuff too. So,
Okay.
but it's
all overpriced. The price for the stuff in my truck is just absolutely disgusting. And then when I go look, when I need something for mine, because like my cabinets, if I need a handle, one of those lock handle things or whatever, man, they want like stupid money for that stuff.
like the RV where it locks in place so it don't flop out when you're driving and stuff.
Yeah, and all that stuff and anything. Like I said, you talk about trying to do anything. What they want is just stupid money for that stuff. And that's why actually a lot of these guys are going to, because of the weight on the diesel stuff, they're going to the gas because it's faster, built wise.
Well, hell, like I see them all the time now. The V8, you'll see the Ford logo in the V8 where it used to be the V10.
Yeah.
They run that V10. Now the motor of choice for the Ford stuff is the Godzilla motor.
That Godzilla motor, yeah.
Yeah, because that thing puts out 460 something. I mean, that
they
thing.
Do those like what are they, F850s or something like that.
I know I've seen the what was it 750? I think it's the biggest I've seen like that with the.
Maybe that's what it is. I thought there was an 850 or something.
I know the the 3 2 3. And then the 450s and the 550s are kind of, that's what I think they're 2-ton, 2 or 2.5 tons, like that. And then
because that's like class 5, right?
Here you go, Ray.
Jeez, yeah,
that's a big sleeper. But that's that same kind of M2 cab and like that. It's that same setup, Lewis.
That must be fun going into the city with.
Yeah, well, you hope you're not over that length line when that DOT guy stops you.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that's a lot of those they categorize them and they insure them and they set them up legally as an RV.
Right, yeah. I know.
But so I don't know if there's a length law in for a recreational vehicle because see that was what Brian brought into big sleepers was when the federal government relaxed the overall length, because that's why cab overs were so popular in the 70s and the 80s, is because they realized that you could run a 100 or 153-inch cab over which lets you go to a bigger box because you had a 60 or 65 foot total length law.
Yeah.
And then eventually they went, okay, then they're like, okay, we're not going to count the tractor length. Now it's simply like pin position for the kingpin and the trailer. So that's basically what they started measuring. Okay, it's the trailer. Because I saw one Tuesday going down to Jacksonville, and that guarantee that guy had a 160-inch sleeper on it because he had the double windows in the side of it. I'm like, good God, that's a big sleeper.
Yeah, I've seen them long, man. The wheelbase, man. Whew.
Definitely run around the cab naked.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to try to turn that thing around anywhere because that length, and a lot of them use the W900s or the 379 Pete's and all that. And stretched out. And they're like, man, that thing, you're going to need 40 acres to turn that thing around.
Yeah, I think those guys, they run a lot of highway,
east-west coast. They just,
they're up in the big sky of Montana where it's just all open road, straight.
80-mile-an-hour speed limits and flat land.
The tool guy that runs around in Montana, it takes him 2 days to get to his next shop in some places. And he's got a huge tool truck with a sleeper and a trailer. He even carries a trailer. He's mapped out, dude. The guy, And like you said, he's got 2 drop locations, and he's got one day where he's a day and a half to get to the next shop.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's deep.
So man, getting warranty stuff back must be a real pain in the ass from him.
Well, I tell you one thing, you don't want to miss your payment. When you roll into town, you want to make sure you get paid.
Tony, you ever do any truck stuff?
No.
Yeah,
No, I drove a truck for a while. A friend of mine had a few of them, and we used to. That's when I was living in Queens. We used to come out to the island and get the garbage and drive them to like Ohio and.
You brought him here to Youngstown.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting because I never knew that kind of stuff existed, and all you see is just land for days, and then you look down and you see bulldozers like a couple of 100 feet down in the ground. They said, yeah, they're going down so they could layer the garbage.
Yeah.
So all the trash, well, not all of it, but a lot of the trash from New York comes here to Youngstown or Poland, Ohio.
Yeah.
Those are our landfills. Yep.
Yep. So that was crazy, but that was my only experience with a truck. I did that for a while. I did that for about 6 or 7 months. So it was cool.
So you were smart and got out of it.
Yeah.
Smart, got out of it.
Because, well, as Lewis will tell you, it's a lifestyle, and when that bug bit, it's like riding a bike. It's when you get bit. When you get bit, it's tough.
Well, you know what helped me get out of it, because my friend, like I said, he had about 3 or 4 trucks, and he would leave me the keys to go practice. So I would wait till like 12, 1 o'clock at night, and I'd be out there with just the truck, no trailer, nothing like that. So long story short, I got good at driving. I passed my permit test with flying colors. And I went to school because they said it's easier to go through school to get your license. So I went to school, I signed up for Ferrari. The guy comes the first day, okay, he's driving me around Queens, and you drive pretty good. I said, yeah, I've been doing this for a while. I just need my license so I could drive alone. So the next day, he put me to the test. Okay, drive over here, back into there. So I did everything textbook, backed up, got out, this and that. So he park over here. Then I had to explain all of this stuff and this and that. So he goes, well, you know what? You're very good, but you're still going to need, at the time, whatever it was, our $1,500 package, this and that. I'm like, dude, I don't need this. I could show you what to do,
Yeah.
So that was my end of my career. I said, I'm not giving these guys whatever.
Yeah,
It was a lot of money, man.
Yeah, now you have to go to school. You can't. You got to go to school. Like when we went and got mine, I just jumped in the truck and was out.
Wow. Yeah.
Back when they called it a chauffeur's license, and you could read the book, and if you had half a brain and were pretty good, and like you said, you put a little time in and you learn how to back in and how the trailers react and all that. Well, and then you go get your test, and okay, well then you go on. Well, now it's so easy to go to the school, especially when they do what they call a third-party tester, which is a lot of the schools try to do that, where they're approved by the state in which they're, if you live in, or like it was a company out of Charlotte, they were like third-party tester for like Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, because they operated in the lower 48. So they had a lot of their instructors were set up and had been schooled and licensed in those states. So, they would go, okay, if you're in Georgia, you go with this guy. If you're in like Virginia, you go with this guy. And they would break the classes up. And then once, because you had to, they would break it down into 2 or 3 weeks. And first week was permits and health cards and stuff like that, getting your certificate and all that. And next week is, or that when they were, they would, once you got your permitted, then it was, okay, general knowledge, trucks, plug nuts, brakes, airlines, what is this, buzzer, bells, and, stuff in the cab, around the cab, on the truck, on the trailer, kingpins, fifth wheels, brake, slack adjust, the nuts and bolts of the truck and the trailer. And then the second week was slow speed maneuvering, backing into alley docks, and how do you weave through, and how do you stop with the bumper in the brackets, and the slow, your parking lot maneuvers. And then once you pass that, then it was like, okay, now we're going to hit the road and do some stuff. And then once all that was squared away, then it was you had to have X number of miles or hours behind the wheel with a competent examiner. And then it was, then you go out and start riding all over the roads, and the hell, they put 3 or 4 of us in the sleeper, and he'd drive for like 2 hours. The other one would drive for, pull over, drive 2 hours, and just, they would sit there and cycle through. And even after you passed all that, they would, because I remember, because I still have the paperwork from 21 years ago, they had a paper that you had to sign an initial, and it was a statement from the school going, you were taught and tested at a third-party school. If the state in which you reside decides within the first 5 or 7 years or whatever it is to pull your license and retest you, they can do it.
Wow.
After you paid the money.
About it. There's nothing you can do about it other than go, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, when you want to test.
Wow.
And if you didn't, which made sense, it kind of kept them honest of going, you can, they're not going to rubber stamp them, because a lot of places nowadays are talking about, they just literally, you can't fail the tests, where hell, when I was in, like Lewis was saying, and I went through, they'd fail you in a heartbeat if you flubbed up, just,
yeah.
Again,
I think three offenses.
Yeah, because they're like, we don't, and back then it was like, we don't want these people driving this 40-ton, 65-foot vehicle on the road if they don't have a brain and they don't get, how to maneuver, how to do this, how to do that. Now now it seems like anymore it's just money. They just try to simply roll them through and collect the cash,
When I was doing my thing, that was back in the 90s. That was back in like 90, 97, 98. That was a long time ago, man.
Hey, it's 10:50. Let me shut down real quick.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna shut it down too, because I got up early today, and another day tomorrow, man.
Psst, get out of here.
Hey, thanks for coming to hang out with us.
Let me know how you make out those Datsun brakes. I'm curious what goes on with that Master.
I sure will. We got another one on the way. It's gonna be here Monday. So
all right, very
I'll
good.
Keep
Tony.
you posted.
Nice to meet you, Tony.
Thanks for having me again, man.
Okay, man. Thank you.
Okay, good night.
All right, everybody. Thanks for coming to hang out with us in the chat and YouTube Live and Facebook Live. So tell everybody that we do this every Thursday night at 9 o'clock Eastern time, and we will be back next week with some more car stuff.